Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 3, there's a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. As we've ended 2020 and get into 2021, I think most people realize that 2020 was not really that kind to us. We've seen a lot of bad things, and for the most part, there's been so many things that have been negative. In fact, we've kind of been consumed in a lot of ways with negative things. Over the past several months, we've seen decisions made that we never would have thought possible, that would have had to be made. We've seen circumstances come up that we never would have anticipated before, whether we could meet or whether we could not meet, whether we could meet online and how to go about all of that, whether we could meet online and meet in the parking lot, or any combination of all of these things. Individuals have had to make a lot of personal choices. They've had to do what they felt like they needed to do in many ways, whether we could come to services or whether there needed to be staying home, who we've been around, and whether or not we've maybe been exposed in one way or another. All of those kinds of choices, and for some, it's reinforced just really what we have often maybe taken for granted, that we have a need to be with one another, that we need to have our relationships rekindled, and the longing that we have to be together and worship together and study together. And yet the opposite can also be true. If there's been any kind of weakness or something like that, it would be easy to contribute along those lines to having another reason not to come together or a reason not to be there with one another. Churches and individuals have made a lot of hard choices. Social media, of course, has been filled with all manners of positions. Churches have been condemned if they didn't take it seriously enough. Churches have been condemned if they took it too seriously. Any number of areas in between all of that as well. Last year, our theme for the year was on sowing the seed. How appropriate, right? Because 2020 was certainly a challenge with all of that in mind, very challenging. And really, before we get to the main thoughts of our lesson this morning, I do want to talk about some positive things from 2020. Positive things and 2020 being in the same sentence, not very commonly used, but there have been some positive things. And even though we were forced out of our comfort zone, outside of what is normally normal, and even though we have been outside in many ways from what we wanted, there's a lot of things good to talk about. After all, Zoom, Facebook Live, YouTube, streaming videos, all those things have been around for a little while, but that really didn't matter so much to us until this past year. And so thinking about a few things that are positive that came from 2020. Of course, we did our first Facebook Live on March 22nd in 2020, and I think all of us were kind of caught off guard with how a lot of these things took place, how we had to scramble to figure out what we were going to do, how it was difficult. We didn't know what was going on from one day to the next in many ways, and how could we possibly have any sort of preaching or teaching or study or worship? How could we do any of that with all that was going on? And so there was a lot of time spent in research and organizing and prep work and figuring out new technology to us and how all that was going to come about. But we were able to do that, and that's been a very positive thing. And I thought I'd share a few statistics with you from our last year. We have 71 videos that are on Facebook, and that's how many we have for the year. And so that's 71 more than what we had from the previous year, right? 71 more than what we've ever had, and that was all kind of thrust upon us in coming together. Over the course of 2020, we had 8,717 views of our videos that we've had on Facebook. And the chart that's there, that's from March 1st through the end of the year. That's on the screen. I know you probably can't make out many details of that, but that's the graph there. And when we started, of course, that was kind of new to a lot of people. So you see how it tapered off, and then you see how it's kind of picked up as the end of the year came about. That works out to be a total of 16,001 minutes that's been viewed in 2020. And that's just a little bit more than 266 hours altogether. And so that's a chart of that as well. We gained 83 followers for 2020, which is a total of 243 followers that we have on our Facebook page. So that's good, and you see the ebb and flow there on those things on the screen there. And so those are some of the main statistics in regards to some of that matter. I don't know about you, but I'm encouraged by that. That's something that was new to us. It's something that has gone on and has been encouraging. It's statistics. There's numbers there. The numbers don't lie. And had we not had all these uncertain things, all of these things that we would call bad, that wouldn't be happening. It would be something that maybe we would do down the road as different things came about. But instead, we had to take this on, and that's what's come of it. So that is a very positive thing, I would say, and so many good things I believe have come from that. Now, having said that, there's a lot of room for potential there. There's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to that, and that's something I want us to think a little bit about as well, because for 3/4 of a year, those aren't huge numbers in the scheme of things, and yet it's great for what we're talking about, and it's certainly so much better than what we were at before in regards to our situation. And also, this isn't about what other churches are doing or anything like that. It is about what we can do. And it is about an avenue for us in preaching the gospel and spreading the word and teaching the lost. So all of those things are important for us as we think about the direction that we go. Consider for a minute along these lines. What can you do? What can you do to help? And that's something I want to talk about for just a minute. Most of our videos that are online, they have just a handful of shares, a handful of people that like or respond to it. Larry and John have been real good about that. My family, for the most part, have been good with those things. Holly's been good about sharing those things, and sometimes some others as well. But that is one of those things that really is pretty simple, that could make a big impact on things. In fact, our most shared video was Ethan's sermon back at the end of November, and maybe you can see on the graph there towards the end of the year, the little blip up. That was Ethan's sermon that he preached towards the end of November, and he had 8 shares. That's good compared to some of the others, but I think you can see we could probably do better than that. Most sermons are maybe in the 3 to 5 range, and so that's something for us to think about, and that's something we could all help with. And I want us to see that we have the potential to do more. And of course, this is something that is pretty simple, pretty easy, doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't take anything like that other than just to actually do it. And so there could be a lot of things that come just from that one aspect. And also remember that every share, every comment, every like has the potential to bring the message to somebody else. And just as if you're on Facebook you get all kinds of things from people that you're friends with that they've liked and shared, and you see all of that as well. Well, it works the other way around too, with whatever you like and share and comment on. So really, it can't be emphasized enough, especially when it's so simple and effortless, and in light of the fact that all of us have a unique set of friends. We all have a unique impact on other people. That is true both physically with the people we know and interact with, and it's also true online as well. And I do want to mention just one more thing along these lines of how you can impact that just with your own situation. We have 243 followers, I mentioned a little bit ago, but you have the potential, each one of us, to go in and invite people that you are friends with, to like our page, to follow us, so that they get all of these things as well. If you go to the Sutton Lane Church of Christ page, it looks something like that. That's how it looks on mine. Probably looks like that on yours. You'll see the red circle there towards the right. There's three dots there, and if you hit that button there, it comes up and shows you at the bottom of that menu the Invite Friends button, and that brings up something like that, and you'll have a list of all of your friends, and you can go in and select whoever you want, and you click a box and check off who you want to invite, and then of course you send invites. And I'm sure all of us have gotten things like that before from other friends. So and so has invited you to like or follow such and such, So those are some simple things that each of us can do and make a difference in all of that. So I did want to mention all of that. It is simple, and yet if you don't know how to do it, then it's not so simple. But there it is, how to actually go about that. Our new theme for 2021. Encourage one another and build up one another, from 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 11. We're going to pass those out at the end of services, so don't leave without a new booklet. The booklet's 32 pages long, which is the same as what 2020's booklet was. And of course, it's meant, as I hope you can tell from the title, to be an encouragement for us, as it previous year has been a little bit of a downer in many ways. Even though we've talked about some positive things so far this morning, we do need some encouragement. We do need to be built up, and a lot of things we were talking about from the last year, will be incorporated in this new year as well, as we think about building one another up and being edified. There's a list of monthly sermon topics that are in there. There's short articles as per usual on our theme that I hope will be encouraging for us to go through. There's verses there for each Sunday concerning the Lord's Supper, and a new daily Bible reading schedule as well. And I hope that it's used as is intended. Take an evening or two and read through it with your family. Go through some of those things, and don't just make it something that you go through in the next week and then you don't look at it anymore. It's meant to be something you can go through and be revitalized, be encouraged, and be able to be reminded of what's so important to us in being built up and encouraged one to another. I will be sending this out on a PDF in the next week, so you'll have it electronically as well. So I hope it'll be an encouragement to us as we move forward in this year. Now, a few thoughts regarding edification and thinking about some of these things. Ecclesiastes 3 again tells us there's a time to tear down and a time to build up. And as we talked about, there are positive things regardless of the circumstances of what goes on around us. But let's face it, our society on a whole, there's a lot of things that are bad. And I think especially Christians need to be interested in building things up. And if we aren't careful, we can be guilty of losing the art of being edified, of getting so bogged down with the things in this world that we have a hard time being encouraged and a hard time being built up. And so we need to revive that. and make sure that we are focused on those things that are encouraging and focused on those things that are going to help us grow in our faith in the Lord. So just a few thoughts in closing this morning. Prayer, can't go wrong with prayer, right? We need to be prayerful. We need to be praying more. Nobody ever tells you pray less, unless it's the world, but we need to be praying more and being more prayerful. And certainly as we think about our relationships with others, it's hard to be mad and upset at somebody if you're praying for them, if you are talking to God about those things, if you are making it a point to bring that up to the Lord, then we're working towards those things and doing better in regards to that. And we should be thinking about those matters, and not only our relationship to God, but the relationship of others with the Lord and our relationship to them. So a genuine, prayerful heart is going to have a lot more difficult time with bitterness and anger and things like that towards others. James said in James 5 and verse 16, the effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. This isn't about praying one time more than what you planned, but being more prayerful, being more fervent in our prayers, and understanding our relationship to the Lord and what He desires for us. So how are we going to be better at edifying one another and being built up and building others up? Well, that's a pretty good place to start right there, is being more prayerful in our life. Encouragement. There's not many Bible verses that command us to accuse others or attack other people or be suspect of everybody. But there's an awful lot of verses about encouraging one another, isn't there? A lot of verses that call on Christians to be encouraging people. And as we think about how that affects us, we need to be people who are known for our encouragement, and that we are part of a group like that. We certainly have a clear command from the Lord in regards to being encouragers. And we also know from the Lord that how our manner of living is directly affects what other people think of us. John chapter 13 and verse 35, where Jesus said, by this all will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. And so the way we behave, the way we act, the way we interact with one another and with others shows people a lot about who we are and what's really important in our lives. Do we have that love for one another? Well, people see that, or they don't see that, and that also is something to be seen. But it is upon us to take those things seriously as well. 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 11, therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. And so that's something we can all take to heart as well, being encouragers, building up those around us. And finally, living a life that points to the Lord. What is the point of encouraging others and building each other up? The point is our deeds and our actions and what they point to. I want to be more like Christ so I can point others to Jesus. I want to be more like Him so that others can be more like Him. That really should be the point of our actions, to bring others to the Lord, to put the spotlight on Him and for others to be able to see Him. My life needs to be a reflection of Jesus, not myself, but rather it should be about the Lord. Do I do this when I'm around other people? Is that who I am around others? Or is it something else entirely? And so what am I showing to other people is something we should be thinking about and considering, because our life should be a reflection of the Lord. Our life should be pointing to Him. And as our scripture reading was this morning from Philippians chapter 2, think about these words of Paul. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourself, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, although He existed in the form of God, did not regard equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied Himself, taking the form of a bondservant and being made in the likeness of men, being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. What an example for you and I, thinking about Jesus and the life that he lived on this earth, what his priority was, and how he went about that, how his attitude was not about self and preservation of self, but it was about what he was going to do for others. Have this attitude in yourself, Paul says. What an encouraging thing to think about and talk about, and yet one that we often are so far away from that we need to strive further to get closer to. And so in wrapping up this morning, we do live in a crazy world. There's a lot of fear and anger and confusion around us, but we don't have to be among those that tear down. We can be among those who build up. Yeah, it's easier to tear down than it is to build, but that's really how the world works. The age we live in is about biting and devouring one another, but you and I, that's not to be who we are, right? You and I are to be different than the world. And certainly with the Lord's help, we can turn those things around. We can be as God would have us to be, and hopefully influence other people to be that way as well. And so let's strive in the new year to revive edification. No matter what direction the world goes in, it's going to be worth it for others and ourselves if we're not living that way, but living more towards the Lord. 1 Corinthians 14 and verse 12, Paul said, "Let it be for the edification of the church that you seek to excel." And so as we strive to be better ourselves, we're going to help be better as a congregation as well. So I hope as we think about some of these things, they will be useful for us as we strive to be better servants in the kingdom. This morning, if your life is not right with the Lord, I hope you'll take advantage of the opportunity to change that even this very day. What a great time it is to be together, and a great opportunity with this first of the year to be ready to be more in our service to the Lord than what we have been. If we can help you this morning in any way, please let it be known this morning by coming forward. Together we stand and sing.
Jesus gave his life a ransom, never on Calvary, cruel Calvary. Paid away by blood that we might win a bright shining crown. Praise his holy name,